Later that day after class, Kevin rushed to Amara, stopping her in the hallway. He admitted that he had been worried when she hadn't shown up for class and immediately asked if she was okay. Amara nodded, assuring him that she was fine and that she had just been dealing with some personal matters. Kevin smiled, telling her that he would fill her in on what she had missed. He added that they had been assigned a pair project, and since she had been absent, he had chosen her as his partner. Looking at her hopefully, he said he hoped she didn't mind. Amara returned his smile, telling him it was fine, and thanking him. Before she could walk away, Kevin suggested that he show her what the assignment was about. Amara explained that she still had research to catch up on, and suggested they do it the next day. Kevin insisted it would be quick, and after a brief pause, Amara gave in. They made their way to the student lounge, a public resting area, and sat together as Kevin showed her the assignment. Amara studied the document carefully, while Kevin, sitting beside her, couldn't help but glance at her repeatedly. He admired her beauty, her gentle demeanor, and the quiet confidence she carried. His chest tightened with a bittersweet ache, knowing that even though she was so close, she remained emotionally out of reach. He hated himself for feeling this way, knowing deep down that her heart belonged to someone else. Breaking the silence, he asked if she had gotten back together with Leewi. Amara looked at him, smiled, and nodded. Kevin's expression faltered slightly, hurt coloring his tone, as he asked if Leewi was treating her well, if he had been kind and fair. Amara reassured him that Leewi was good to her and far from as cold as he seemed. Kevin forced a small smile, masking the ache in his heart. Just then, Kevin's gaze drifted and caught Leewi walking toward them, accompanied by a university senior. When he spotted him, he immediately turned to Amara. He gestured subtly, suggesting she check if anything was in his eye. Concerned, Amara leaned in closer and gently blew into his eye, oblivious to Leewi observing them. Leewi felt a heat rise in his chest at the sight. Amara so close to Kevin, so comfortable, leaving barely any space between them. His piercing gaze lingered on them as he passed, torn between walking over and asserting his presence and maintaining composure in public. Resisting the urge, he moved past them, his body burning with quiet fury. When Leewi passed, Kevin looked at Amara, confirming that his vision was fine, and thanked her for helping. Amara returned to studying the assignment, while Kevin, still keeping an eye on her, voiced a concern. He asked her if she was okay with Leewi being so jealous, wondering aloud if Leewi's jealousy might one day become dangerous, if it might drive him to act irrationally. Amara shook her head, assuring Kevin that Leewi would never hurt her. Rising, she told him she needed to work on the assignment, encouraging him to do his part as well so they could compare and refine their ideas later. Kevin, hesitant, offered to buy her lunch, but Amara stopped him with a gentle, knowing smile. She reminded him that he had said himself that Leewi was the jealous type, and that as much as he avoided close interactions with other women, she had to show the same respect. She hoped he understood before walking away, leaving Kevin sitting there alone. Kevin let out a soft laugh at the absurdity of it all, feeling the weight of the situation. A low-status student like him trying to compete for a woman with someone as prestigious and untouchable as Leewi seemed almost laughable. Deep down, he knew the competition was nearly impossible to win. Meanwhile, outside May and James's house, a crowd of protesters and media personnel still gathered, demanding answers. Inside, May studied the speech they had prepared, her hands trembling as she tried to steady herself. James held her hands, reassuring her that she could do this, and that she had to remain strong for their daughter. May voiced her fear that the journalists might ask too many questions and that she might slip, revealing more than she intended. James reminded her that they had rehearsed the speech all day and that she was well prepared. Taking a deep breath, May stood, preparing to step outside. James, sensing her nerves, told her she would be fine. Together, they approached the door, May's hands trembling on the lock. Slowly, she opened it, stepping out with James beside her to face the media. Cameras flashed relentlessly, microphones thrust forward as journalists bombarded her with questions. Despite her trembling hands, May composed herself, ready to say whatever was necessary to navigate the scandal and protect her family. May stood there, cameras flashing in her face, James by her side offering steady support. The journalists bombarded her with questions, asking if it was true that their daughter was essentially as good as dead, hidden away in their home while they lied to the world that she was well. They pressed further, questioning if their actions were cruel and inhumane, demanding to know exactly what had happened to their daughter. Taking a deep breath and gathering her courage, May admitted that their daughter was indeed in a coma. She explained that while they had told people she was well, it did not mean they were being inhumane. Their decision to keep her at home was out of love, to remain close to her and ensure she received the best care. She added that top doctors visited regularly, and she was far from neglected. Their choice to maintain privacy was meant to shield their family from constant questioning during this incredibly difficult time. Tears welled in her eyes as she continued, explaining that their daughter had suffered a skiing accident that left her head injured, and they were doing everything possible to bring her back. They refused to give up on her, believing she could be saved. As May spoke, the journalists' expressions softened, some beginning to sympathize with her plight. She continued, her voice steady but firm, requesting privacy for her family so they could navigate this trial without constant intrusion. Unfortunately, someone had snuck into their home and taken a horrible, unauthorized photo of their daughter. Looking directly into the camera, her expression hardened. She declared that she hoped whoever was responsible would face the full consequences of their actions, and that she would do everything possible to bring them to justice, even pursue legal action if she ever discovered their identity. Turning back to the journalists, May asked for their understanding and support, requesting privacy and prayers for their daughter. With that, she stepped back inside the house, James following closely behind. As the door closed, she wrapped her arms around him tightly, admitting she couldn't believe she had managed to speak without faltering. James smiled at her and reassured her that she had done well. May exhaled, relieved, noting how fortunate they were to have prepared a solid story. Had the truth about their daughter leaked, they would have been ruined. James took her hands in his, promising that as long as they worked together, they would protect their secrets, and he would support her every step of the way. Holding her firmly, he offered both reassurance and strength. Later that evening, Amara returned to Leewei's place. The moment she stepped inside, he walked briskly from the balcony to meet her. Taking her hand in his, he looked at her with a firm, unreadable expression. His gaze fixed on her as he asked where her wristband was. Startled, Amara looked up at him and explained that she had noticed it missing when she arrived at school earlier and had taken it off while showering that morning. Leewei's eyes pierced into hers, and she could tell immediately that he was far from pleased. Before Amara could say a word, Leewei's voice cut through firmly. He reminded her that he had given her the bracelet for a reason, because her life was in danger. His eyes were sharp, his tone unyielding as he continued, telling her that she was acting as if everything were normal, carelessly forgetting something important. It was as if her safety didn't matter at all, he said, and that he cared more about her well-being than she did herself. He added that while he protected her, she also had a responsibility to keep herself safe, and that something as simple as wearing a bracelet should not be a challenge. Amara looked up at him, realizing just how upset he was. Even though he was usually cold and aloof, he had never scolded her before, and now, for the first time, he was letting her feel the weight of his concern. In a low, apologetic voice, She told him she was sorry and promised never to make the same mistake again. Liwei's gaze remained fixed on her, unyielding. After a long silence, he spoke again, his voice steady but firm. She was an adult, he said, and her life was in real danger. She needed to be aware of even the smallest actions that could protect her. He reminded her that exposing May and James's daughter had been a calculated move, but it didn't mean they would let it slide. They would come back with full force. Amara's eyes widened in shock. As she asked him if he was the one who had sent the picture to the media, Leeway didn't answer immediately. He released her hand and walked away, leaving her standing there, stunned and silent. In that moment, the weight of his words hit her. He was right. She had been careless, taking things lightly, ignoring his warnings about the bracelet. She knew now that he had every reason to be upset and to scold her. Leeway lay on his bed, trying to calm the tension inside him. He wondered if he had been too harsh, if he had gone too far scolding her, but he reminded himself that his reasons were justified. Her safety was paramount, and he needed her to understand that. Closing his eyes, he resolved not to go to her, to let her feel the seriousness of the situation, to show that her safety was never something to be taken lightly. Meanwhile, Amara sat in the living room, her thoughts tangled with guilt and longing. She realized he was still upset about the bracelet. The fact that he wasn't coming to her or speaking to her made her ache. Though they were in the same house, his silence felt like a wall between them, and it tore at her. Finally, she made up her mind. She would go to him, apologize, and make things right before he could come to her. Steeling herself, she stood up, determined to face him. As she was about to walk away, Leeway walked in. Leeway remained seated, his eyes fixed on Amara as she hesitated a little ways away. With a low, commanding tone, he told her to come closer. She moved toward him, heart pounding, until a swift motion brought her onto his lap. His hands gripped her waist firmly, holding her rooted against him, leaving no room to move. He studied her carefully, expression stern, eyes intense, and after a long moment of silence, he asked how he should punish her for ignoring his warning and failing to wear the bracelet like she had promised. Before she could answer, he tilted her head up and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was fierce and unrelenting, as though he was claiming her entirely, making sure she couldn't escape. She felt his strength in every motion, his hold unyielding, yet there was a strange warmth in it. Slowly, he eased the kiss, pressing his forehead against hers, whispering that this kiss, was her punishment for not wearing the bracelet. Amara's lips curved into a soft smile. Her heart told her that the kiss was a sign he wasn't angry anymore, that it was a make-up kiss. But Leeway wasn't done. Pulling her closer again, he murmured that there was one more punishment. Before she could question him, he slowly removed her top, exposing her shoulders to him, then pressed his lips to the delicate skin of her neck, leaving a love bite that burned into her. His kisses grew firmer, drawing a startled grip on his shirt from her as she pressed her head against his shoulder, letting herself melt into him. Then he released her and told her that was the punishment for being too close to another man, explaining that he had seen her with Kevin and how cozy they had been. Amara explained that she was only trying to help Kevin with something in his eye, but Leeway, keeping his gaze fixed on her, said that Kevin had done it on purpose, that he had faked the eye injury to get her attention. He told her he still didn't trust Kevin and she shouldn't get too close. Amara nodded and promised to be careful, saying they would complete their pair work quickly. Leeway's expression softened slightly as he held her gently and asked if she understood why he had scolded her. She nodded and apologized again, promising not to be careless. Seeing him still troubled, she asked if he was okay. He admitted that he had messed up, almost letting his uncle suspect him, and that the way his uncle had looked at him when talking about his father had worried him. Amara noticed the worry on his face and got off him, sitting beside him and telling him to lay his head on her lap to let her comfort him. Leeway hesitated, but Amara smiled and reassured him that she just wanted to help. Slowly, he laid his head on her lap as she gently caressed his face, running her fingers through his hair. Her touch calmed him, and he felt more at ease. She looked down at him and smiled, saying that maybe she should do something nice for his uncle to calm him down. Leeway simply nodded, letting her care for him. She leaned in and gave him a soft, fleeting kiss on the lips, telling him that he was her big baby, and she would always make him feel better. Leeway held her hand, kissing it gently, admitting that he had planned to stay upset with her longer, but couldn't because he wanted her by his side. He told her that he was selfish with her, that he wanted her all to himself, and that she was his alone as much as he was hers alone. His eyes, his body, his touch, everything was hers and hers only. He added that he wanted to be the only man who gets to be close to her, who gets to touch her and kiss her, and that her body should only be used to his presence and touch. Amara blushed at his words, knowing that this was his way of showing love. He continued kissing her hands as he traced his lips gently on each finger. The intensity of the moment was broken by the beep of his phone. A message from Master Shen revealed that the military man, once close to his father, had been tracked down. Leeway's body tensed instantly, as surprise and urgency flared across his face. The following morning, after getting ready for school, Amara walked into the kitchen and found Leeway already preparing breakfast. Just as she was about to help, he looked at her and firmly told her to sit down, insisting that he had everything under control. He served the meal with his usual precision, while Amara sat watching him with a smile, noticing how naturally caring he was. When he joined her at the table, his gaze softened as he reminded her to eat as much as she could, stressing that breakfast was the most important meal of the day. Amara, smiling at him, teased that he loved feeding her too much. She joked that maybe he wanted her to get fat so that no other man would dare look at her. At her words, Leeway turned to her, his eyes narrowing with that piercing intensity that made her heart race. He asked if she truly wanted other men to look at her. Realizing that he was getting jealous, Amara quickly reassured him, telling him that she only wanted his eyes on her and no one else's. Shifting the subject, she confessed that she still hadn't told Momo about moving out and knew her friend would be hurt. She explained that she wanted to take Momo out for lunch or maybe ice cream to soften the news, hoping to put her in a good mood before telling her. Leeway listened, then nodded in agreement, giving her permission to go. His expression turned serious again as he reminded her to wear her bracelet, to avoid dangerous places, and to keep texting him to assure him she was safe. Amara nodded with a bright smile, promising she would be careful. Wanting to lighten the mood, she picked up some food with her fork and tried to feed him. Leeway gave her a look, but when Amara pleaded, reminding him that he had promised to be gentle with her, he gave in and let her have her way. Rising from his seat afterward, he told her that since they couldn't be seen together on campus, he had arranged an Uber for her while he would follow discreetly behind in his car. Amara nodded with a smile, and together they stepped out. Later that day, after class, the professor made an unexpected announcement. Amara would be assigned to a new partner for the assignment, and Kevin would also be reassigned. Both of them were taken aback by the sudden change, but Kevin, more shocked and frustrated, immediately stood up. He marched over to the professor, demanding to know why the switch was happening, insisting that he and Amara had already started working together. The professor explained calmly that the decision hadn't been his, but had come from higher authorities. He told Kevin that he had no choice but to follow the new arrangements and assured him that the submission deadline would be extended as compensation for the inconvenience. Kevin, refusing to back down, argued that it wasn't fair. He pointed out that, as their professor, he knew his students better than anyone else, and he shouldn't be forced to follow outside orders. But the professor remained firm, telling him that if the director had made this decision, it must have been for a good reason, and he should stop being stubborn. With that, The professor walked out, leaving Kevin standing there fuming. It didn't take him long to realize the truth, that it had been Leewei's doing. The director had separated him from Amara, driven by his own jealousy and personal reasons. Amara approached Kevin gently, telling him that it was all right, reminding him that they hadn't even begun working on the assignment yet, so switching partners wouldn't really be a problem. With that, she walked away, leaving Kevin behind. Kevin remained standing there, his frustration boiling. The thought that Leewei would go so far as to let his jealousy dictate academic decisions infuriated him. Determined to confront him for his selfishness, Kevin stormed out of the classroom, heading straight for Leewei's office.